All right, everybody, welcome to the New York City Data Exploration with Plotly Meetup. This is our first official meetup of 2025. And for today's agenda, we will be covering a little bit, I'll tell you more about the monthly New York City meetup. We'll go into the New York City MTA Transit challenge that we had. And we'll go over a few dashboards and data apps built with Plotly and Dash and some of the code to teach you and show you how Plotly is used to create data apps. We'll talk about upcoming community events in January that you can join virtually. We'll talk about the next community meetup, and then we'll break up into the space for networking and conversations. Okay, so about this monthly meetup, it's the first Tuesday of every month, always 6 p.m. unless I say otherwise, but it should be always at 6 p.m. The goal of the meetup is twofold: to use Plotly and visualizations to uncover insights and help us understand how to improve the city that we love through New York City data sets. Along the way, we're learning Plotly, we're learning Python, we're learning Dash. The second goal is really to build purposeful relationships and expand our professional circle, right? Network with each other. So that's why this meetup and every meetup, the first part will be a data viz presentation. This time it's me, but it can be any one of you that is interested in presenting about data visualization with Plotly or Dash. Just let me know. And the second part will be networking. So you're free to stay here until 8 p.m., which is when Flatiron School told us that we have to shut down, turn off the lights and shut down. Jeff. Okay, so Plotly at a glance. Who is Plotly? Who are we? We were founded in 2013. We've had over 500 million downloads. I think it's closer to 600 million by now of Plotly and the Plotly libraries. We have a total of more than 115,000 GitHub stars. And if you can see here, this card in the middle, Databricks actually did a survey of like 10,000 of their customers. And through the survey, they found out from their customers that Plotly and Dash as a data app framework was the #1 data and AI product combined with Databricks. So pretty excited about that. All right, so now the presentation. Now that you know a little bit about Plotly and who we are, let's dive into the presentation. We'll talk about several apps that were submitted to the Holiday Season App Challenge. This is a New York City MTA Transit Challenge that we started about a month ago. And as you can see here, there's like 64 different posts, and many, many different apps and visualizations were submitted to this challenge. If you go specifically here, I made a post of the winning apps, first, second, and third place, and all the apps that were submitted, so you don't necessarily have to scroll up and down. So we're going to look at 3 different apps today and certain parts of the apps that I found interesting. Of course, if there's anything else in the app that caught your attention, let me know and we can talk about it after the presentation. We can go over the code and see. So the first app I found that was most interesting, using the most interesting techniques. It didn't win first place or anything, but personally I found it very interesting. This is the app. It was built by Sébastien Didier from Paris, France. And as you can see, it has a few cool features. First of all, we have a theme changer, or a theme toggler. So this is dark themes. Let's go to solar. Well, solar is right now. We can go to like light theme right here. And then we can change, do we want it dark mode or light mode? So this is just changes of light and dark, but this is actually the whole theme and the style. These are bootstrap themes. Do we want lumen? We choose the slightly different colors, materia, slate. I kind of like slate a lot, quartz. And then when we choose a theme, we can just choose, do we want it light or do we want it dark? Right? So I'm going to go back to the original one, solar, the default one. You also have the code here if you click on the GitHub repo. And what Sebastian did, which I really liked, is first of all, he added dash AG grid, this table right here, right? That gives you like a summary of the data set. This data set, as a reminder, was part of the challenge. If you go all the way to the first post, you see the data set right here, data on a daily ridership. This is data set of subway rides or buses, people taking the buses, Long Island Railroad, Metro North, and so on from 2020 all the way to like November of 2024, right? The pandemic started in March, give or take, of 2020. So the goal of this challenge was to figure out the recuperation of riders. How far have we recuperated? How quickly has each one of these systems recuperated to potentially 100% of what the ridership was back in 2019, 2018, 2020? So first, I'm going to put this dash AG grid here. We can see the column of the transportation means. We see the ridership average, whether weekend, or let's take subway. So on the weekdays, we have 3.6 million on average. On the weekend, we have 2.1 million. Now this is from, what is this? 2020 to 2024. And then we have a comparison column from the previous period of the last, I think it's about 6 months, to the pre-pandemic. So ridership in the subway is about 31% less than what it was in 2020. But taking the Access to Ride, which is single or private car rides for people with disabilities, that is actually more than recuperated. It's 22% more than it used to be. And what's cool about the dash AG grid here is, he changes the color here to green if it's a plus, red if it's a minus. He adds a million, M for million, K for 1,000. There's different sub columns here. I think we can actually even move columns around. See, we can even move columns around. And it's not too many lines of code, so it's pretty cool to see these capabilities. So then we have here the second part underneath. We have the graph itself. There is this graph right here that I'm going to focus less on. It's like the prediction for the next 30 days, forecast of how many people will take the subway or the bus or the LIRR. I want to focus more on this graph right here. Look at these neat things that he put in there. You can click on this and you can collapse the div, all the controls, and now you have the graph that's a lot bigger. And here you have the bar chart, which is also pretty cool. Now it's divided by quarters. You can see here quarterly. From 2020 to 2024. And you can move this range slider to see only specific years, right? It doesn't necessarily filter the data set, it just moves and slices the figure in any way you want. If you want to focus just on 2022 and just see that to 2024. And here specifically, you can see that we have subways and buses. This is the light yellow. The yellow in general focuses on subways, and the pink in this case focuses on buses or represents buses. The light yellow is what the subway, let's say in, 2023, technically the ridership of the first quarter of 2023 should have been, right? If it was, I think we took the last 3-year average from 2017 to 2020, technically we should have been at like 403 million. But what in reality happened in 2023, the first quarter, meaning January, February, March, we had 274 million. So that's about, like 70%. Same with buses. You saw that we have 108 million, where we should probably be at around 163 to meet the pre-pandemic ridership. Now you can change this. We can go, this is another cool thing, right? He has totals. In the title, he inserted or embedded controls. So we can change from total to yearly mean to half yearly mean. We can change from quarterly to yearly. Let's change to yearly and see. You see, 2020, 2021, a half year, monthly, and week and day. All right, so pretty cool. And then in these controls right here, also, a lot is going on. You can click the date picker and choose a different date, a different range, right? If you don't want to see 2021, you only want to see the data, filter the data for 2024, you can do that by choosing year, like a different year, 2024. You can choose other things. Maybe you want to see the accessoride. Let's remove buses and subways. You see accessoride here. And let's say bridges and tunnels. Well, that's too big of a difference, but subways. Staten Island Railway. And then here you can add labels. I just added labels above them, right? You just click on the checkbox. Or you can add official pandemic declaration rate. Oops, what happened here? Let's refresh. You see the declaration rate right here on the left, just with one checkbox. And this is all with Dash, right? It's through the callback. You say if the user clicks on this checkbox, if this checkbox is true, then add this to the graph, add this trace or this annotation. And lastly, it has here ways to compare. Here we're seeing the underlay, but we can see percentage, right? And this percentage I really like. Looking at subways and buses, we see that it's looking at Q4, we see that subway is 73% caught up to what it was pre-pandemic. So if pre-pandemic in the fourth quarter of the year, on average, we would have 100 million subway riders, 72%. Now we have 73 million, just as an example. And one last one. Yep.
Data looks a little weird. So can you go back?
Yeah, let me 1 second. Yep.
It says 73% caught up, right?
Yep.
But if you look at before COVID, it's a little over 50%, right? So what does it mean by 70% caught up?
So, good question. Because this is quarter, it's not necessarily before COVID. Let's actually look at it more, because the first quarter will go up until, including March, it would include COVID. But if we go to, let's say, month, hopefully it doesn't, you see? You'll see that here, there's only one part. What is this? I think like March. This is really when COVID started. COVID started right here. So it's almost like it was already, when the data started in March, there was already 50% of the so the 100% would actually be all of 2019. Right. What was the?
Okay, so that reference point where it's being compared to needs to be clear.
Okay, that's a good point. Yep. And you can see it drops here, and we'll see it in the other Dash apps how it goes up. But what I wanted to highlight here is the input button. So here we have the input button, and what I'm referring to is this. You see this input button right here, the 6. Also, he added another input into the title that you can change. I want to see the last 6 months, or maybe I want to see the last 4 months. Pretty cool and pretty easy to add it with Dash. He added it with using Dash Mantine components. It's an open source community repository built on top of Dash. And he had DMC input. He just gave it an ID. He said the initial value will be 6. So when I refresh, now it's 4, but if I refresh, you'll see that it will go back to 6. That's the initial value. And the min will be 1, and the max will be 24. So I cannot go under 1, and I cannot go above 24 as much as I click on it. I'm not going to go all the way up to 24, but you'll have to believe me there. And then we have the size extra small, width is 50, and so on and so on. But using this ID, now we can go to the callback, copy, I'm going to look for it. And here's the callback. We're taking the value of this input button, right? 6 or 5 or 4. And then he's just updating or slicing the data, right? It's called period, and then he's just using it here, right? Period, period, slicing the data so that we only see, and then he returns the new data set into the grid, into our Dash AG grid, right? So that's how he's filtering the data based on the input that is chosen. You see the columns are changing. Pretty cool stuff. Let's go into another app. The app challenge winner. The person actually in the app that won this challenge is this app right here. Pretty cool styling. This was a panel of Plotly judges, my coworkers, that we put together, and they looked at all the apps that were submitted. I think there was like 10 or 12 apps, and they chose first, second, and third place. And they liked this one the most, probably because of the styling and the many good apps, Plotly visualizations that the author Alfonso, I think was his name, put in here. You can see there's really good explanations, bless you, instructions. There's really cool summary cards that summarize the information. This is just like anchors. So if you see, I'll click on it, the URL, it'll just move. It's not a different page. It's just moving to the, it's scrolling down automatically to that section of the page, right here or right here. And I'll let you explore this later. We'll send out the slides and we'll send out all the apps through email, probably tomorrow or Friday the latest. But there's some really cool graphs here, like a line chart that shows us how pretty much once the pandemic started, how a timeline of a recuperation. You can see this one is bridges and tunnels, meaning probably buses or cars that are going through the bridges and traffic going through bridges and tunnels. It hit 100% recuperation in December of 2021. So about a year and a half later, already back to 100%. And actually this went over, like the Access-a-Ride went over 100% starting July of 2023. The slowest ones to recover were the Staten Island Railway, which has yet to recover. Even nowadays, October 29, 2024, it sits around 50% of what it was in October of 2019 and the average, 2018, stuff like that. So really cool chart. This violin chart I personally really like, right? Same thing like recovery rates and percentages, but like a double-sided violin plot, but looking at weekend and weekdays. We can see here the main difference, or the biggest difference, is in the LIRR, how the recovery rates, the median, you can see says 78. The median is 78%. I think this is for all time or the last 4 years. I can't remember what's the time frame here, but let's say it's for the last 4 years. The average is 78% on the weekend, but weekend, yeah, and weekday, it's at 56%. And that kind of makes sense to me. When is it? Let me see here for a second. So it's weekday, yeah. This is weekday. It's hard to see the colors. And this is weekend. Kind of makes sense to me because you can see that the median distribution is a higher recovery on weekend compared to pre-pandemic, because a lot of companies, I don't know what percentage, but a high percentage of companies changed their policy to work from home, right? And not everybody came back to work from the office 5 days a week. So traveling via the LIRR, and probably subways, it should be the same, yeah, very similar, is probably not going to go back to 100% unless everybody changes to five days a week. But on the weekend, we shouldn't see that big of a difference. We should see the same kind of traveling because people still probably want to travel on the weekends and do stuff. So this is a very telling chart. There's a few other ones. The last one I wanted to talk about is a heat map. Kind of really cool way of doing this, of seeing the recovery rates. You see the percentage of recovery by time, but instead of a line chart, you see a heat map. All right? So you can see here that Access-a-Ride reached 100% and even more by December of 2021, and then it's like at 120 or something like that. While these ones that are pretty red, like close to zero, are before July of 2020. So it's really cool to see how quickly things, like to visualize recovery by color. I really like that. Animated bar chart. So this is the bar chart. We click play, and we can see this is not recovery rates, it's just absolute numbers of ridership. In subways, 6 million. Buses, LIRR. This is by per month, I think. And Access-a-Ride and so on. So the absolute numbers. But what I found, what I wanted to show you is the code, right? Because this is using a Plotly bar chart. It's only animating it. And what I wanted to highlight is the ease of creating animated charts in general, but animated charts with Plotly. We just do a plotlyexpress.bar to create the bar chart. We're going to use our data frame, which we call df, up above. The x-axis is going to be the column that's called mode, right? This is the mode column between the different transit systems. The y-axis is going to be ridership. It's actually the name of the column, ridership. The color is also, he also added a legend here, which I don't know if I would necessarily add. I'm not sure because there's just so few categories. Same color will probably be, I don't know if color adds that much, but if you want to add color, just one line of code. And animation, you see? To add an animation, to make this to create this whole thing on the bottom, you don't have to define the play button, the stop button, the years, the range slider. All you have to do is assign the date or time column. I'm not going to go into the data set right now, but later if you go into the data set, which is in the challenge post that I posted right here, data set, you'll see that there is a date column, right? And this date column, he extracts the year and the month, and that's it. And that's how this animation is created with an automatic play and stop button. So bar charts, 3 lines of code. You want to animate the bar chart, just 1 line of code, you need a column that represents time. Same thing with scatter plots or choropleth maps. You need scatter plot, you need an x-axis, a y-axis, if you want to add color, and then animation frame is the property. You have to add the column from the data set that represents time, minutes, age, whatever continuous thing you want to add. Okay.
What prize did he win?
He won first place, Alfonso. And now we're going to look at second place. This is the app right here that won second place. And let's go into the layout. We see here that we have really two columns. This column right here, all the way up into the Y, this main thing right here, and then this column on the side. So he's using Dash Bootstrap for that. Let's go right here, layout. And you'll see here that we're using the DBC container. DBC stands for Dash Bootstrap. So on the top, he just imported Dash Bootstrap components as DBC. He's wrapping everything in a container, which is like a div. And then he's defining the row, right? Everything is going to be, I think, in one row. And here we have our first column. It goes all the way from here, all the way down here. 8. Column, large, 8. Which I think everything in here is going to be, divide the row into 12 columns. That's usually how you want to think about it. So this is going to be 8 columns. 8 columns. From left to right represents 8 columns, and this to the right represents about 4 columns. Let me make this a little bit smaller and see. Eight. What happens? Yeah. So when the screen is large or larger, like extra large, extra large, is going to be 8 and 4, right? And this is like mobile responsive. It depends on the size of the screen. If the screen is small, then it's going to be 6 and 6. Like they're going one on top of the other. It's going to divide into 2 separate rows. So that's how you kind of do it with Dash Bootstrap components. One sec. I just want to go over the layout, and we'll open up for questions. So here you can see in this 8 columns of this row, what he does, and then in the bottom, the other column right here is 4. You see how it says here 4 on line 324? So that's how you know this is 8 and this is 4. And then he just puts all the content in there. In the 8 columns, he'll put 2 drop downs, 1 drop down, another drop down, as we can see here, these 2 drop downs, which again are actually separate in a separate columns, 6 and 6, right? Within that 8, the 6 and 6. And then below that, he'll put tabs, all these tabs right here. Right here, only weekend, weekdays, and so on and so on. And then right under, no, it's Marie Michel. I shouldn't say here, I was thinking of Alfonso, but Marie Michel actually won second place. So this is her from the Netherlands, her app. Here's another column with all the accordions, almost like collapsible divs. These accordions right here are these extra information that we get about the data collected and about some suggestions and insights. So this is how what I wanted to highlight with this app is the layout, fairly not complex to control your layout, just rows and columns, right? Everything is in one row, but with different sizes for columns. And you want to make sure that everything either adds up, does not surpass 12, either adds up to 12 or below 12, because you have to imagine that a web page is 12 columns wide. So you have 8.4 or 6.6. If you have 10.3 or 10.6, then it's going to drop into another row. All right, that's how it works. There's plenty of videos we have on Plotly that talk about layout. Last thing I wanted to just show you what I liked about this app is either you can do show recovery in percentage, which she's doing right here, or the trend line to see what will happen in 1 year or in 2 years. You can see that with all services. This is average of all services, but Subway in 2 years, this is will be above 80%, but not necessarily above 100%. We know that Access-a-Ride already surpassed 100, so in 2 years it'll be like 200%. I like this one, the percentage, like violin chart, weekdays and weekends. We can see the difference, right? And the ridership trend, she put 2 lines here, the 100% and 80%, just to highlight them so we can tell the difference, and some information here on the right. So I really liked how she built this app, allowing the user, in this case me, to better understand how she got the data, what some insights and suggestions are. Yes?
In the predictions, did they do any analysis or anything on how congestion pricing may affect the ridership?
I don't know how much analysis she did with the predictions part. I'll have to look deeper into the code, and I'll share it with you via email afterwards. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how she did it. It could be just a regression line. All right, folks, so this was the apps that I wanted to show you, how it's built with Plotly and Dash, all open source. To finalize the presentation for today and to go into our networking part, I just wanted to talk about upcoming events in case you're interested. So on January 10, let me close all these. On January 10, we have our Figure Friday session. This is this Friday, and every Friday we have a Figure Friday session. Figure Friday is an initiative in the Plotly community where every Thursday we release a data set so people can start working on it. Well, no, I do it in my head. Every Friday morning we release a data set so people can start working on it for 1 week. This is not the MTA. The MTA challenge was actually the app challenge, which we do every 2 months. There's plenty of opportunities to build and to engage with community members. But for the Figure Friday, it's 1 data set per week on Fridays. And then you have until Thursday night to build either a Dash app, or most people build just a Plotly figure, like a violin chart. This one was for this week, actually, that I released the data on Friday. Marianne built this nice Dash app. Esther built this violin chart that overlapped between genders. This was a New York City Marathon data set that I shared last Friday. Juan from Argentina shared this scatter plot. And this person, Idling Mind, created a nice Dash app. So most of these are usually Plotly figures because they only have about 6 days to create them. But it's a great opportunity to practice your Plotly skills, Python skills, and build things together, and then get feedback from the community, because we share feedback for each other in this forum and in the Figure Friday session. That's going to happen every Friday. It's going to happen this Friday at noon. You connect virtually. You'll see the link on the top of each Figure Friday right here. This is the link to join us. I'll be there at noon if you want to see me there as well and talk about you don't have to create a graph to participate. You can just come and observe. That's one thing. The other thing is a Plotly virtual hangout. So a virtual hangout is something that it's slightly different than a meetup. It's not a presentation. It's like a fireside chat between a community member and me, with community members that are like the audience. They get to ask questions and learn from this guest speaker. In this case, January 14th at noon Eastern time, we're going to have this virtual hangout with Mike Pertel. He's been a community member for like 6 months now or 7 months. He participates lots in the Figure Fridays. He uses Plotly for his job as a test engineer. So we're going to talk about that, how he uses Plotly as a test engineer. He's an expert in polars and pandas, and he usually uses polars, so he'll explain why he prefers polars over pandas, and he'll talk about his job and Figure Fridays. So that's what we do. Every month we'll invite a guest speaker, usually like a data scientist, a data analyst, to talk about their experience and their usage of open source Plotly or Dash. So to sign up, you have the link here as well. Then we have our product launch event, January 22nd. This product launch event is a webinar that we're holding on January 22nd with a lot of speakers. Here, we are going to highlight our Plotly Dash Enterprise. This is our paid product, which is extremely powerful. We came out with Dash Enterprise 5.6, so we'll highlight a big part of the webinar. We'll highlight these new functions and capabilities and features, and we'll also talk about Dash open source. We're upgrading to, there's a new release, Dash 3.0, Plotly 6.0, and Plotly JavaScript JS 3.0. We'll also highlight some of these changes in the open source world. To sign up, I'll send this later, but also we have the QR code at the end of the pizza table. Just scan the QR code and it will lead you to this page right here where you can sign up. Even if you cannot make it on January 22nd at noon, but you want the access to the recording and to updates, I would recommend you sign up. Lastly, we have the Plotly virtual meetup. So here is in real life, right? It's an in-person meetup, but not everybody lives in or around New York City. So I've been doing for the last year or 2 years, more than 2 years, a virtual meetup on the last Thursday of every month, right? Where we have people from all around the world join us. It's usually between 10 to 15 people that come together the last Thursday of the month at 1 p.m. to share updates about the apps that they're creating, the Plotly visualizations that they've built, the components that they built. A lot of components are built on top of Dash and Plotly, and things that they see and do on the forum, and just get feedback from each other, right? I'll also invite, usually in most cases, our director of the open source libraries team, and he'll talk about the most recent updates and releases in Plotly and Dash, and I'll share other news that I have from and about the community. So that's happening every last Thursday of the month. I think it's January 30th. And if you want to join, just email me. Let me know here. Just email me, adam@plotly.com, and I'll send you the calendar invite. Okay, so one last thing. The next New York City community meetup focused on data visualization is February 4th, Tuesday at 6 p.m. Same place, same time. As you know, as you've seen today, you've heard at the beginning, the first part is going to be a presentation or a talk, or maybe 2 talks. And then the second part, networking and conversations. So it doesn't always have to be me. In fact, this is a great opportunity for you to shine and to show what you have learned or what you want to show the world. So if you have some skills with Plotly or Dash, or you want to practice them and you want to show us what you've built, let me know. And I will be more than happy to add you as like our guest speaker or our guest presenter to show what you've built. All right. The only thing is, please try to focus on New York City. The idea is to there are plenty of places you can take data, or you can get data about New York City. This is one of the places I would recommend, because it's the New York City Open Data Portal. They have hundreds, if not thousands, of data sets from and about New York City, either new data sets, popular data sets by category. And some of them have API, and some of them are just all of them are downloaded Excel sheets or CSV sheets, and then you can build a Plotly visualization around them, or you can build a Dash app around them. So if you do that, let me know, and I'll be happy to allow you to speak about your creations. That's what I refer to with the presentation opportunity.